I didn't get a chance to love you, you know. I was 5 years out of high school and sitting up there on the farm sorting tomatoes every spring. When you asked, it seemed like a good idea to marry. Then the baby came, and the war, and the awful relocation camps. The price of being Japanese in America. Then you left with the volunteers, returned once on a furlough, and never came back. There were lots of handsome guys in camp and lots of cute girls. A widow with a baby didn't have a chance. I never expected to write, and I never thought I was brilliant enough to write. But I began to think about writing in terms of what I experienced so that at least I know that it has some validity. I think it's more important to have something to say, and the need to say it, and the passion to say it, and to say it as honestly as you can with the tools you have. That's wonderful. Oh, look at that. We call ourselves the McDonald's Seniors. And this is the list of people who usually come here. See, there's a Hawaiian group of older Nisei there. They drink their coffee over there. These people are all digital experts. They've all got all that equipment. I always think that the Nisei did very well for themselves, considering that they came out of camp and had to make a living.
When my grandma was 17, she had to go to an internment camp in Poston.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right.
Arizona. It wasn't very fair because she was young, so she couldn't have really done anything to the United States.
I was a senior in high school. Pearl Harbor happened in December. And in January, all the Japanese kids stopped going to school. I do remember that Mrs. House, our history and civics teacher, said that the Japs had bombed Pearl Harbor. And you felt like you did the bombing because, you know, as far as they're concerned, you were a Jap. They already had the camps in mind, I think, because right away we were talking about camps and preparing to go to camps. I lived in Oceanside. I do remember that our family walked to the station, and then we got on the train. I cannot remember anything except the lunches. It was a bologna sandwich and an apple and a donut. And I remember stepping off the bus and stepping into dust up to the calves. My brother and my father went out and filled the mattresses with straw. We waited for them in our barrack that had iron cots. And my mother said she didn't want to stay in that block because there was nobody she knew, so they put us in block 12, in an apartment 1A.
Ma says time passes, tears dry. But what happens to tears we can't let go? I wonder if we'll remember today when we grow old. Will we remember how we met, how we said goodbye, and how we couldn't let ourselves cry? Maybe those tears stay with us till we're old. And maybe one day, a little punch in a Dixie cup, half a candy bar, or maybe one of those orange sunsets will open up a memory. Maybe we'll cry then. God, memories, memories. Oh, here's my family. This is me. These are both me. This is my mother.
This is my brother, Sam, my sister, Yuki, and her son, Byron, who is now 50-something, huh? These are nurses' aides in Poston, and this is me here, the one with the loud dress. I was anxious to get out. My father was sick, and I left him. My mother begged me not to go. That's 1944. That was in Chicago. This is in Chicago. Me, Jiro, and this is me. I just went and they had a WRA there, War Relocation. They asked me what I would like to get a job, and I said, I am an artist. I said, and they said, okay, we'll give you this job at the card factory. Oh, I thought, oh, I'm going to design cards. What it was marking cards, you know, like for the mafia gamblers. And I kept saying to myself, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be doing this. And I went like this and spilled a bottle of paint all over the cards. Well, I ruined a whole bunch of cards and they fired me the first day. I had all these homemade dresses and I go to Chicago, you know, and I look like a little country bumpkin. This is my roommate, Chisato Yasumoto. And this is when I came out. My sister and I got a job at photo finishing place. Because we had access to, you know, printers and all that, we took all these dumb pictures. I used to read The New Yorker, and I liked their stories. So I asked myself, why do I like the story? I didn't want to copy anybody, but there must be a really core of appeal that I have to find. And then try to use that knowledge to construct my own stories. When I first started writing, I used to think, God, this is hard. Oh, look at this material. It's putting me to sleep. How can anybody else keep awake this way? And I think I was thinking too much about grammar, too much about words. How can I say this better? So I decided that I would just write as though I'm speaking to one person. It's hard to tell secrets to a lot of people. And so that's why I think I try to be intimate, you know. About the time that I started writing more seriously, there was a group of young men, Frank Chin, Lawson Inada, and Sean Wong, who were teaching courses in Asian American studies. So they put together Asian American writers' material, and they called it IE. My friend, Nisei Yamamoto, said, why don't you submit some stories? So I submitted And the Social Dance, which is a story about the immigrant Nisei and the hardships they had. And that was a story that Mako, who was then the artistic director of East West Players, read. And he asked me if I would write it into a play.
Nothing more disgusting than a drunk woman. You made a fool of yourself. What's your bakaniste? You made a fool of me.
One can only make a fool of oneself.
You learned that in a fancy school, eh? Hey, answer me. I'm talking to you. You don't get away with that. You think you're so fine, huh? I'll tell you right now, you're not fine enough for me. When I talk, you listen.
To push and pull every word out sometimes. But there's nothing like the joy of getting it done and being happy with it. Where have all the years gone? While I was sulking and complaining, while I was trying to control time's tide, it has gone on, ebbing and flowing, as it always has and always will. The sun rising, sitting, moon going through the cycles, children maturing, mating, reproducing, people dying. And where have I been? Here, invisible to all but me.
I think the first word that always comes to mind is probably eccentric. It's not a bad thing. I don't consider it a bad thing, but just not.
I'm different.
Yes.
It's funny, especially when the kids were growing up. There are different things that would happen while I'd be weaving, and I'd look at that weaving later, and I could recall that something happened, and I would feel like I was weaving that event into my weaving.
This is my project, which has to do with the area in which I was born and raised, called 30th Street, and it's an area in Los Angeles bordered by Jefferson and Adams, and Western and Arlington. Specifically, those streets define that area because of restrictive covenants that were in force before World War II, where people of color could not live in different parts of the city. These are the family names of the Japanese families that lived in the 30th Street area.
It seemed like the group was getting smaller and smaller. They've kept in touch, and they still do. And I think it's really great when you talk about the 30th Street. We always refer to it as the 30th Street, and we're really proud of it.
We were Americans, you know, even though our country forgot that we were Americans. Our family went to Manzanar because the FBI had a list of men to arrest. They were ready the night of December 7th. They came around 10 o'clock and picked up my father. I was really dismayed, you know. I thought, is this where we're going to live? Black tar paper barracks, you know. They walked us up to Block 6 and told us that this is your apartment. My mother, two brothers, and I shared it with this young couple who were family friends with a little 2-year-old boy, so there were 7 of us. My younger brother and I were hoping our friends would come to Manzanar, and they were sent to Colorado, to Amachi. That was a big disappointment.
I don't think I have any other friends who are part Japanese American, and I mean, it'd be really hard to be separated from all the other people that you know.
I call this the 30th Street neighborhood. Quite a few houses on this particular street were Japanese families' homes, and there were quite a few on 31st Street. And so, in a way, you know, that's what made us a neighborhood. Well, this is where Mrs. Townsend lived. She used to be this really crabby white lady who would yell at us not to walk on her lawn. And so we had this little girls' club. We would sit in our meetings cutting up magazines and newspapers into confetti and save it in bags, and on Halloween we would dump it all on her lawn all over so she couldn't get it out. And the last Halloween that I remember, she outsmarted us by waiting for us and then inviting us into the house, and there's a table full of cookies and cupcakes and So we could never do it again. I wasn't a typical Nisei girl. My mother wanted me to take tea ceremony and flower arranging. And I said, no, I wanted to be a Girl Scout. I wanted to go camping. I really spent a lot of my young life on roller skates. And it's the kind where your mother says, you can't come in the house with roller skates. So you figure out a way to walk on your knees and when you go in the house and you don't have to take your skates off. We had moved from 30th Street to 31st Street to a house near Western.
And what's your name?
Momo Nagano.
Momo?
Uh-huh. My maiden name is Nagano, N-A-G-A-N. I'm divorced, so I use my maiden name. But I have 4 kids now.
Yeah.
And I tell them about how this neighborhood was, how much fun we used to have. I was with these 2 boys, and they had a BB gun, and we started shooting at the street light.
Yeah.
And then I climbed up the tree with a BB gun, and I was going to shoot the street light from the tree, and a police car pulled up. They got a report that somebody was shooting, and they said, have you seen anybody? And the boys said, no, they didn't see anybody. And I was up in the tree hoping the police wouldn't look up. God, it looks the same.
Oh, yeah. Same? Yeah.
Uh-huh. The furnishings are different. But
yeah, but the walls and
we had a piano here. This was our junk drawer. You know how you always have where you just throw everything
in. Yeah, throw everything in here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the kitchen we had to do over, It's just one of those things that you have to do over.
One time my mother was cooking and I was thirsty and I grabbed this glass and I drank it and it was sake.
Still got this old tub.
Oh. Hey, I took baths in that tub probably. I was 16 when we moved out, and the night that of December 7th, FBI came and took my father away for a year and a half. Yeah, he was like a community leader, and he had a big business, so he lost his business and everything. Yeah, doorbell rang, and my younger brother was 14, and he and I answered the door, and there were 2 men in dark coats and fedoras, and they said FBI, and they pushed their way in the house and they searched the whole house. And the one who went into the bedroom told my father, get out of bed and get dressed. And my younger brother and I stood in the door and watched them. I still have reunions with my friends. We just pick up where we left off, and I've known some of them over 70 years,
They're adults, but then when we get together, we fall back on the teenage years. They're right, Andy? Kind of. Yeah, we go back to our teenage thing.
There's a lot of street games. Everyone used to play kick the can and
baseball.
That was my favorite, kick the can. And you put it on the curb.
Put it on the curb, and then whoever
someone is in
kicks it, and then we all hide.
No.
somebody's
The can is there, somebody is in and has to count while everybody runs away and hides. And then he looks for people, and then you race him to the can, and I was really fast.
And then when it got too dark, we would say, LAX and free. So for everyone to come back, the game is over.
I was a single mother of 4 kids, from when the youngest was 3 and the oldest was 9. I would sit around in the living room weaving it. That way, they could fight all they wanted to. I think, escaped into the weaving.
My mother would often be working on very large-scale weavings in the living room, with all these poles hanging from the ceiling. And, when we were kids, we'd get upset if her weaving was like blocking our view of the TV, important things.
When I was in Manzanar, I worked on the camouflage net, facility. They had it only for a few months. I was 16 then, and I just loved it. I thought it was so much fun. Many years later, when I became a weaver, one day it occurred to me that, oh, probably my interest in weaving started from this camouflage netting.
Among the many qualities that I really admire in my grandmother are just her personal strength and resilience. And you can just sense that she's an intelligent, creative, cool person, you know, with a good sense of humor.
When I think of my grandma Nomura, I think of someone very glamorous. In the photographs of her when she was, her skin, her makeup, and her hair, it was just all so glamorous to me. And seeing and hearing the old tapes of her singing was very inspiring to me.
And here to render some more numbers for you is the songbird of Manzanar, Mary Nomura. Accent, joy, positive, mind connection, a latch on to the affirmative focus, spread joy up to the maximum, ring through.
Not that old. We used to climb these trees in the nighttime just to steal pears, and a truck would come by and the headlights are going, and we just pretend we're part of the tree, would stand still so they don't see the movements in the tree, and we just take them home and dine on them. We were rascals. Of course, I was only 16 or 17.
Pearl Harbor was bombed on December 7th, 1941. And I know at that time my grandmother was a student at Venice High School. She was about 16 years old. And at that time, think of, being 16, a young Asian American girl, Southern California, Los Angeles area, and, Executive Order 9066 comes about. And it was an order that excluded all persons of Japanese ancestry from their homes.
Oh, it was just a feeling I don't think I know I won't ever forget. Being shipped over here on a bus and not knowing where we're going. And when we looked out the bus, when we stopped here, all these faces were looking up at us, looking for people who might be familiar from where they're from. Just didn't ever realize that this is going to be our home for who knows till when, and something we'll never, ever forget. When we first got here, there were no partitions between the stalls on our thrones, and so we were able to even sit and hold hands with people while we're using the bathroom. This is a piece of old tar paper that was covering our barrack. This is not asphalt. It's too crumbly. Our old stomping grounds.
It's so easy to fool friends dear, to hide this aching heart. But
before I went to camp, I always aspired to be a singer on the radio, because no way such a Japanese is going to be wanting to get into the movies, but because of my love for music, I've always wanted to be on the stage or in the radio. And being that I was in a camp like this, was no way, but I was lucky that I was able to sing at some of these things in the camp, but If it wasn't for that, I would have really been stifled, you know, if I didn't have the opportunity to pursue that music part. The New Year's Eve dance was a big one, and so they had it there inside the auditorium. And that was my real big first date with Shy. It was my very first New Year's Eve date. I was 18, and New Year's Eve being what it is, at the stroke of midnight, I got my first kiss. Hey, I'm lying, that was not my first kiss. No, I was still in high school when I was going out with somebody else. Here at the Eastern California Museum, and came to see some of Shy's display. These are some of the things that he collected and donated to the museum, things that were made in camp, and all these things his family had kept, and so we were able to bring a lot of things to start this display here. That record, the big one, was made in Manzanar in 1944. Louis Frizzell brought the paraphernalia in from the city in Los Angeles, and he set it up, and he played the piano, and I sang a couple of songs and recorded it. And the little record is 2 songs that Shy wrote, composed the words, and I put it to music. This is the master record. I'm really fortunate to have this copy. That's the only time that I was able to make a recording. Oh, devil moon, deep in your eyes, blind me with love. Oh, devil moon. Yugure ni aogi miru. Music means the world to me, and it always stems back to the memory of my mother always having music in the house. She always instilled in all of us, whatever time you have, whatever money you have, always strive to go see or hear music in plays, because the arts was so important to her. The last 2 years when I went to Japan, I saw these beautiful furoshikis, these blouses, and I said, hey, I can make a blouse out of that because I used to have one 30 years ago. So I started to sew just to keep active. This club, the So-Phis, was founded around 1958 or 9, and I was approached to be one of the charter members. And then after we started our grocery store in Garden Grove, I got too busy, so I dropped out. My husband, Shy, his love of the Sierras just overpowered him, and he says, you know, when I die, I want you to scatter my ashes over the Sierras, because he had such wonderful, vivid memories of Manzanar, the good parts.
I'm very thankful that I think because my grandparents were also very creative people, that it's kind of gone down the bloodline.
Untouchable memories seem to keep haunting me of a love so true that once turned all my gray skies blue. When your body starts to rise, you can't stop. bunch of damned whores and we never wear drawers, and they say we're the cause of dissension. But never you fuss before you judge us. There's a few things that we like to mention.
I knew all of my cousins have talent, and it's really it's funny to see what hams they are. And I know it came from Grandma.
Boy, you're the lover I have waited for. The mate fate had me created for. And every time your lips meet mine, darling, down and down I go. Round and round I go in a spin, loving the spin that I'm in, under that old black magic called love. I should stay away, but what can I do? I hear your name, and I'm aflame with such a burning desire that only your kiss can put out the fire. For you're the lover I have waited for. The mate fate had me created for. And every time your lips meet mine, darling, down, down I go. Round and round I go in a spin, crazy about the spin that I'm in, under that old black magic called love. That old black magic called love. Okay, I did my duty for the night.